I'm 87 years old, almost 88. I've enjoyed my life, and I hope I've made a difference. I'm not in the best of health, but I'm still going.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that dead weed up there. But I bumped my head one time on it.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
What, were you sitting on the bed?
Yeah, that's the only way I can
was
see
over
that
there and
happening.
bumped the end. Just barely got in my hair. But I thought, boy, that was a close one.
Awesome. Well, I just have a bunch of stuff I just want to ask you, talk to you, hear some stories. Anything you want to tell me to, you're welcome to.
I don't
So-
have any stories.
I know, that's why I'm
I
going to
can
try.
make up some lies.
Yeah, the more lies, the better. You can. This is your chance to make people think anything they want.
Oh,
So,
Lord. They already know.
yeah. So let's start. I guess the first thing. What would you say would be your first memory, the oldest memory you have?
Well, my mother said that I couldn't remember it. And this was after I was grown. She said, you can't remember when you were 3 years old. I said, yes, I can. I said, I can draw you a picture of the house and the barn and the well and the outhouse. I know right where they were at. And the railroad track that ran by the house. Oh, she said, I was drawing by then. So I drew her a picture of her and looked at her, and the tears run right down her face. She said, have you got a picture of that place? Nope. I remember it. I said, you were not quite 3 years old. Did somebody draw you a picture? Nope, nobody ever drew me a picture. I just have always known it.
Mm-hmm.
And then she asked me about another place we moved to. And I could remember that, and I was 4 then, she said. And she said, you can remember that little creek that run down there by the side of the road there? I said, yeah, I remember throwing rocks in it. Leona was with me, my sister. And Alvin was with me, and she was only a baby. But she was walking. So that was some of the earlier experiences that I had in Kentucky. I was born in Burning Springs, Kentucky. We have a picture of that. Burning Springs School, wasn't it? It was a school that had a big sign that said Burning Springs, Kentucky. Yeah, that's where we took the picture of it. We got it. Where would we have it?
It's in one of the picture albums.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, we and I don't remember Burning Springs because we moved it from there when I was 11 months old. So we moved to 3 other places in Kentucky, and we had a aunt and my grandmother and grandfather on my mother's side living up here in Seaford area on a farm that they bought. And we needed a place to come after my father died. So we jumped on a bus and gave away everything we had. And it was very little. And she bought what she called 3 cardboard suitcases. And I remember them real well. One of them was mine to take care of, and one was Leona's, and I think one was Marie didn't go. Maybe it was Evelyn's. Anyhow, we had 3 to take care of, and she had a big box. And there was all our stuff that we owned. And we were coming to Seaford, Delaware. It took me a long time just to be able to pronounce it. C. Ford's what I wanted to say, because that's the way it was spelled.
And what year was this?
In 1941.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we hadn't been up here very long when the war started. And we were living with my Uncle John Lovelace, my mother's brother, and we hadn't found a place to live yet. But something became available about a mile away, and we rented a big house like it froze to death. It was an old wood stove. I had an outhouse. I was about 50 yards away. And in the wintertime, that's cold walking.
Oh, yeah.
To that outhouse and back at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Do you just hold it as long as you can so you don't have to go out?
No, I just told her I had to go.
Yeah.
And Mother would get up and walk all the way there with me. And everybody else was sleeping. And then as soon as we got in bed, one of the other kids would want to go. But the girls primarily used what they call the slop jar. It was a jar that was made to go and do your thing. So most of the girls used that and dumped it the next day. But the men that was there, uh-oh, we got something. Jack Daniels.
No, sweet tea.
You're putting on weight. You just slow down.
No, I did that in Florida.
You and I haven't seen you since Florida.
I've lost 8 pounds since I got here.
There you go. Good job.
Falling right off to nothing. Anyhow, we rented a house and we moved from that house into Seaford, into town. First time we ever had a house with electricity in it and a switch in the ceiling. Pull the switch and on and off. And us kids wanted to mess with that thing all the time, and Mother hollering at us, "Stop that, you're gonna break it." And sure enough, we did. It had that kind of a chain on it. And but the piece of string done just fine. She fixed it. But from then on, everything got better. Until the war was about half over. And we were not making ends meet. And the church we attended was the Church of God. And they talked my mother into sending me and my 2 younger sisters to Tennessee to an orphanage. So Mr. Miller and his wife had lived in Tennessee, were going to Tennessee to visit their mothers and fathers, and said we were welcome to ride with them, right, and they'd drop us off right where we wanted to go.
Now, why did you want to go to the orphanage?
I didn't want to go.
Like, why did they want you to go? Because of the war, or?
Yeah, because we didn't have any money.
Oh, gotcha.
We couldn't feed 6 head of us. Everyone was without jobs, and jobs were scarce. And so we were down there for a year and a half, and my mother came and got us, brought us home on the bus. And everything got better. My sisters were old enough, a couple of them old enough to work at DuPont's. And my other sister, older than me, yeah, I had 5 sisters and me, and a brother. In 1945, my brother was rooming out because my mother did not allow alcohol in our house, and he wanted to drink beer. He was 21. Christmas Day in 1945, 2 o'clock in the morning, the undertaker knocked on the door and told us the story of my brother dying in a fire. Not from being burnt, but from smoke inhalation. Well, I was in school and had, well, there was 3 of us in school at that time. And my older sister, Leona, the one that was right next to me, older, she was working at a restaurant. She met a man there and she got married, and another sister older than her got married, and another sister older than those got married. They were your aunts. And well, kind of hard to talk about some of this stuff. But anyhow, my brother died in the fire. The Christmas morning. It was a bad Christmas day. And we buried him, and after he died, it left 5 girls and me, the only boy.
You were the man of the house.
For a while I was, and my mother did get a job finally in the hosiery mill, right a half a block away from us. She kept going down there and telling them she needed work. Finally they gave her a job, and she was there probably 3 or 4 years, and things were getting better. We were paying $13 a month rent in a pretty decent home. And she had a heart attack. And she couldn't work anymore. So that was 1950. I was going to be 18 in 50, late 50. I went to DuPont and applied for a job, and they told me just as soon as I turned 18, come back, I was hired. So I did. So things really got good then. Yeah, brought home $180 first paycheck. And most places were paying 50 to 75 cents an hour. And DuPont was paying me $2 and something an hour. And the next paycheck I got was more than that. It was, I had to have my clothes that I bought there, took out of my paycheck, first one. So, Mother said she'd never had a paycheck like that in her life. And we got better, things got better. We moved to another house that was better. Yeah. And then I think it was 55 maybe, that I got married.
And how did you two first meet?
Oh, out to the roller rink. We used to go to the roller rink a lot. A lot of people did, kids. And I was a floor boy there and worked at DuPont's too. I loved to ski. And I got good at it too. But that's where I met her at. And we got married and rented a place and had babies, and some of them are your mothers and fathers.
Yeah. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for that.
That's right.
Yeah. So you get married, and then I guess 3 years later is when you had my mom in 1958.
Mm-hmm.
And was that expected, unexpected?
No, it was planned.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was planned and it worked out good. And, she was your mother was, Kim was my oldest daughter. And then a couple of years later, I had another daughter. And about 11 years later, I had a son. And I delivered him at home in the bathroom.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. I've only heard.
It didn't bother me a bit. I was well prepared for it. And I had took a 1-hour course over in Blaze Fire Hall on how to deliver a baby.
Just in case.
Put it to use, and it happened. And it was born and healthy enough, and you see what you got.
Tell me about, so Uncle Jeff was born with, I'm guessing he was not planned because it was so many years later? Or was it kind of just?
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
She said she didn't want any more after the first one was born.
Mm.
But she slipped up on the second one. And then she tried something else, and we slipped up on that one. It's hard not to.
Yeah, yeah.
So, we were married for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And things weren't working out right. And so we got a divorce, and I was hunting and fishing a lot, and boat racing, and doing a lot of stuff that men do. And I was single again. Yeah.
And then you met Charlotte?
Yeah, that I had known Charlotte, but she didn't know me, and I didn't know her really, but I'd known that was the prettiest little girl on the skating rink floor. And she was quite a bit younger than me. And I was like 21, she was 15 or so, huh?
16.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we met each other and didn't know this about the roller rink, that she'd seen me and I'd seen her and all. We got to talking and met on the dance floor, really. And we've danced through 43 years of this life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been wonderful.
That's awesome. And so what year was that you two got married?
What was it? 76. 76. And I was single for almost 2 years.
Mm.
And I was getting wild.
You needed somebody to reel you back in.
She did.
That's good. That's good. That's
She did. She broke a lot of my habits.
That's good.
I gave up smoking.
Yeah.
Gave up beer drinking. I was just giving up everything I had. But I wanted to keep what I had too.
Yeah, yeah. So can you tell me a story of, let's start with my mom when she was young. Just, is there a specific story that you remember from her being a child that's always stuck with you?
Well, she was the firstborn, and I was working at DuPont's on shift work. And I'd work 4 to 12, and we lived real close to the DuPont plant. And just as soon as I got off, I'd run all the way to the house. And get her, and she was usually awake. And I'd rub her arms and legs and walk with her when she was only 3 months old. I was holding her, and rubbing her legs and arms and everything that would help her walk. She walked when she was 9 months old. Yeah. And her early walking is something that I'll never forget. Most people's children were walking like when they were 10, 11, 12, 13 months old. But Kim was an early walker.
Do you have a story from when she was like a little older? Something you remember? Something silly she did? Or...
Well, for a while, she was my first born child. I kind of favored her. I mean, she looked a little bit like me, had some people say she did. And I kind of took to her and paid more attention, I think, than I did to the second one. But I found out I didn't need to do that. My second one loved me, and I loved it just as much as I did Kim. But if you're going to show Kim this thing, she's going to be crying most of the time.
I know, you know her too well.
She will. And I spent time working at the plant 40 years. That's a long time. I shift work 15 and a half years. The rest of it I worked on day work. And oh boy, I love day work. I built a home, and I and another fellow helped me. And we worked at DuPont plant and built houses on the side. After I got kind of up in age a little bit there and built a new home in '63, and that was an experience.
That's the place you lived when we were younger?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was married to your grandmother then.
Mm-hmm.
And she helped on the house. She did a lot of painting and whatever she could do, and cleaning up after me. And we went on a lot of trips to Arizona to see my sisters and my mother. They'd all moved to Arizona. Then I had a sister to die, and I miss her. Had another one to die, and I miss her. Had another one to die, I miss her. That's 3 of them. And I've got 2 sisters younger than me, so one of them's not doing so well right now. She's in bad shape. She's 84. I'm 87 years old, almost 88. I've enjoyed my life, and I hope I've made a difference. I'm not in the best of health, but I'm still going.
Mm-hmm.
And all you kids, grandkids came along, and I hope I've left an impression on you that'll get me by in the pearly gates.
Yeah.
I go to church. My father was a Baptist preacher. My grandfather was a Baptist preacher. My great-grandfather was a Baptist preacher. And they all told me the same story that was passed on down. It sure beat working for a living.
Yeah.
Yep. And there were circuit riders. They rode horseback through the mountains in Kentucky and Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina. And I couldn't make it. I couldn't make the preacher.
Yeah.
Things changed. I was living in a faster moving time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Maybe in another life you became a preacher.
Maybe.
Baptist preacher.
But it was a different thing.
Yeah.
I was glad. I told Mother many a time I knew I was never going to be a preacher.
Mm-hmm.
Those old hot summer days, it even hold us church meetings outside because it was too hot in the old country church. Didn't have any heating system except a coal stove and no electric. A lot of them were in different parts of the Smoky Mountains. I can remember some of them. That was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. How old were you when your father died?
Oh, was 9.
Okay. Do you remember him at all?
Oh yeah, sure do.
That's cool.
Yeah, he was a real horseman. He'd get on that horse and load up his saddlebags, and he'd holler for my mother. Her name was Stella, and I imitate him, and because she taught me how to do it. He'd say, "Stella, you got me 2 white starched shirts in here," and pat on the saddlebags. "Yes, Ben, I've got you 2 white shirts just like you told me to." And we didn't have electric, so you did it with an iron that was put on a stove.
Mm.
And it was run by coal, burned coal then. And he'd take off. He'd be gone 6 weeks at a time sometimes. Come home maybe with $5. This was during the Depression in the 30s. And that was a lot of money. Yeah.
And how old were you during the Depression? Do you remember any of that?
Well, no, I was born in November the 29th, 1932. And the Depression really didn't get over until the end of the Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
We were starting to recover a little bit when we moved to Seaford, but it came with us, and there was some good times. Good times.
Yeah. Can you give me any memory from when Jeff was young? Anything crazy?
Well, of course, I delivered him in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And floor, and all his mother could scream about was the floor was cold. It was December the 8th and she was naked. And I was grabbing every towel that I could find, all the towel holders, and putting them under her best I could, and the doctor was on his way, and he got mixed up because he thought we lived at one place and we had moved and not told him we had, and he figured it out, and he finally got to the house there, and he took the baby and checked it and all, and called an ambulance, and the ambulance came and got the mother and the baby and took off, went to the hospital. And I went and followed them. And I was glad we had a boy.
Mm.
Yeah. I was really glad, but the divorce started and when he was young, and I didn't get as much time with him as I really wanted to. By no means. She went her way and moved, and I stayed in the house, refinanced it, and
You were there for a long time.
I was there from 63 until we got, well, we've been here 6 years now.
It's like 2014 or so, 2013. Around then,
Oh, that's been 40-some years ago,
yeah.
43 years ago or so.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Now, what about, my mom told me that you built a roller coaster for him when they were
Did
little.
what?
You built him a mini roller coaster when they were little?
I did.
How'd you get the idea for that?
Well, I had seen a roller coaster before, and we had been to Disneyland out in California. On one of our trips to Arizona, we went on into California, went to Disneyland, and I seen this up and down. So I went down to lumber yard and got a lot of certain size lumber, and I went to building it, and built the cart and all, and wheels. And you go up a ladder just like you would a sliding board, and you get in the cart, let you go, and there you go like this. And finally you go across the yard and stop at the end. It would go up and come back.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the kids could really ride it well. But a neighbor's child, a boy came over there, he was a little boy, maybe he was 5, and he went down there and he got to the end and he didn't know he was going to go backwards, he said, and he got up there and he bailed out. Oh, he hurt his head. He hit the framework that was holding it together, and he lived right next door, and he was hollering for his mother and screaming. I was trying to get his hair separated so I could see where he was beat up at, and he was beating his head with his hand and trying to run, but he was running in circles.
So you knew he hit his head pretty hard.
Yeah.
Straight.
But he shut up when his mother came over there
Yeah.
and told her he fell out of the cart. And he'll get over it. And he and I knew each other till he died. Oh, you're still sleepy.
I'm not sleeping, I'm stretching, man.
Stretching what?
I'm definitely sleepy.
Yeah. You see my better half anywhere?
I think she's outside on the phone.
Oh.
Somebody called her. So, any other stories, things, anything you've thought of, or that you want to say, or just things that you remember?
Well, I remember you when you were born.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, that scared us all to death. And we didn't know exactly what had happened, but we knew when you were born that they wanted you to go to Philadelphia to the hospital, children's hospital. And off you went, and your mother got right out of bed and went with you. I don't know if she was riding in the same car or not. But I was with this woman, Charlotte, at that time, and we went to the hospital and found out where you went and where your mother went, and found out about your heart condition. Stayed up there overnight, I think. I'm not sure if we stayed all night or just part of the night. And came home, went back up the next day. We spent a lot of time in that Philadelphia hospital, I know that.
Mm-hmm.
You were kind of rough.
Yeah, it must have been a scary.
Yeah, it was a scary mess when they would say, I don't know. Just up to him to pull himself through it. You were just a newborn.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, your mother learned somewhere along the line, but she learned a little song and she sang it quite a bit. And by just hearing it being sung, I learned the little song. And let's see, get it straight out. Now Kim learned it, and she sang it, and I sang it right back to her.
Do you remember it?
And I can still sing it.
Let's hear it.
I'd a little teapot, short and stout. Here's a my handle, here's a my spout. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
Beautiful. You still got all the words?
Yeah, and she was only 3 years old when she's singing this.
You don't know where she learned it from?
No, or I guess from her mother.
That's fine.
Might have been TV or.
Because she knew it, and it's something from Long Island. That's where it came from, probably. That's where your grandmother was born and raised.
Oh, my kids all knew that little song.
Yeah.
But that was just something to say.
It was a nursery rhyme.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Sure, but I never knew it.
Yeah, that's fine. So who taught you how to play harmonica?
I never did learn, really.
You just bought one?
No, I bought 10 or 12 of them. You got a couple, didn't you?
Yeah.
I got some in there, and I uncovered some out in the shop there after, and I thought, here's 2 more. And I had some of them expensive jobs, but I couldn't play nothing on that thing. And when you pushed it in a half note or stuff, it blew me away. I gave it away. But them Horner harmonicas were the best ones that I found.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I can play a few tunes. I played one girl, a friend of ours, a tune on the harmonica, and she got all done with it. She wanted to know what it was.
What is that
The
thing?
dulcimer too.
Oh, yeah.
And the dulcimer. I played that string thing and never did get to. So I was good at it, but I could sing with it. And I tried to do a little teapot with it, but I didn't get it. But Michael Road to Boulder Shore, I got that one down pretty good.
I'm a little teapot on the dulcimer, it just doesn't have the same effect. Yeah.
I could play it on the harmonica pretty good. And then I tried it on the dulcimer, but I didn't do well with. Yeah, even holding a little stick in my hand, that you played.
Mm-hmm.
I still couldn't get it. And if I had to use your fingers, I tried playing the guitar one time till my sister was going to teach me because she could play. My fingers got so sore on the end there that, I said, I ain't gonna play that thing. It got to be a better way. So I seen him playing the dulcimer with the stick, a little stick, and they would be picking and running it up and down the keys, frets and all. I didn't make it. It's still sitting up in the closet there, I think, somewhere. Yeah. Oh, I've had a good life, and I've enjoyed all my kids.
Well, it's very interesting how you've had so many different stages of life, it seems like.
Oh, yeah. I've had a second chance.
Yeah, that's cool. And
Yeah.
you were saying right before we got interrupted, you guys went to Hawaii at some point?
Charlotte and I and another couple who was a cousin of mine and his wife, they went with us, and we had a beautiful flight
Done a lot of travel.
over there.
Yeah.
Been to Alaska.
And we,
Hawaii.
yeah.
Those are the only two states I still have to go to is Alaska and Hawaii.
Oh, was that
Well,
right?
Yeah, the other
Alaska.
48.
Alaska on the
We've been
boat
across
cruise,
country for
I
3
love
months.
that real, but she got a little bit woozy, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't notice it in it.
No, cruise is my thing.
Mm-hmm.
But now I enjoyed it. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
don't like
enjoyed
that
that, but I
ride.
enjoyed that Hawaiian cruise. That
Well,
was-
I wasn't a cruise.
well, we went on something there that took us all up to along the shore of Hawaii.
Oh, yeah, a dinner boat.
Yeah, dinner boat cruise, yeah. Yeah, and you got a little woozy then, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been on boats all my life. My father
Yeah.
always had a boat.
It might be different with the giant
Yeah.
boats like that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But we seen a lot of things there when
Grand Canyon.
Grand Canyon, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite
Yellowstone,
places.
Yellowstone
Mm-hmm.
and
Sedona.
yeah, oh that was a nice
White
place up
Mountains
there.
of Arizona.
And we stayed up there for what, a week,
Close to it.
and my sister next to me, younger, Evelyn, and your aunt Evelyn
I know her.
had a beautiful home up there in the White Mountains.
We just saw her last year. Me and Stephanie went out there
Yeah,
and stayed with her and Tom.
yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right, yeah. And she, but did you go up to the mountain?
I've been to their mountain house when I was younger. We didn't go last year, but when I was much younger, we've been up there.
Yeah.
So, and we saw Tracy and all
Tracy.
them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got one of those books that was put together by Staple
Mm.
Company down in Salisbury. And Evelyn got one of them too.
Mm.
And she took mine, and her and I went to Salisbury and dropped it off at Staples and went back the next day and got it, and they had printed that whole book that thick. And I got that book in there. And it's got the life history of far back as they could go and find all pictures of my dad and my brother and mothers and sisters and my aunts and uncles. See, my dad had 20 children. He had 10 by his first wife, and she died. Then he married my mother, and he was 51 and she was 25. So she was or he was twice as old as my mother. But that wasn't unusual down in the South, up in the mountains and all. Husbands were scarce. And there was one girl that was 15 years old, and she married a man 80 years old. And this man owned as far as you could see, just like this, mountains. I mean, big high mountains, thousands of acres.
This was somebody you knew?
streams running through it and all that. No, they weren't any relation to us. They were friends. And he wanted to get married. The old man did. He had nobody to leave it to. So he married this 15-year-old girl, and they lived together, I think, about 3 or 4 years. She was 18 or 19 when he died. And she got everything. And they discovered a lot of things on the property. Oil was struck there. And they had the pumps, you know, that were going all through the mountains there. She leased it all out to the oil companies, sold a large tract of it. And it was, of course, he was too old to be active, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hope that thing's not recording now. So there was 20 people that were born from one man.
Mm.
But that was not the good part. He had a brother who had 22 by one woman, and she had 3 sets of twins.
Oh my gosh.
And
So their parents had like 50 grandkids.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And they lived in a 2-room shack down on the Blue Ridge Parkway, right off the Skyline Drive. You go on to the Blue Ridge Parkway, and you'll come to one of them big cast iron markers, you know, and it'll tell you all about what you're looking at down below. And my father's brother, who would have been my uncle, and but I wasn't born yet. Anyhow, they had 2 rooms down there, and you could take this exit, and we went all down and around and asked somebody walking along this old dirt road. It was all woods, but it wasn't nothing blacktop. It was all dirt road, and it led right up there to the base of where you go up where the cabin is. And all 22 of them were born and raised in that cabin. And the good part about it was, the great part about it, every one of them lived to be 18 years old or older.
Mm.
See, my mother had lost 2 when they were, one was a year old, one was a year and a half old.
Older than you?
No, that was before I was born.
Yeah.
Yeah, one had pneumonia and the other had whooping cough. He didn't even go to the doctor. You couldn't get out of the mountain. You get on an old sled with a mule pulling it and take the winding roads. And if you'd had a nice heavy rain, you couldn't cross the creek down there. You'd have to tie your mule up and get up and walk across a swinging bridge to the other side of the creek, and that water would be rushing through there, because I've seen it. And I've got helped get across there on the other side. When we came back, we walked right across. The water was only that deep, but it was just deep when we were. Yeah, and my father got me one day. We lived up on a mountain, an old log house, and he said we got to go down to the creek. Well, that took me to death. Get down around that creek. I loved the water, even though it was just that deep. But it was wide and running through there. So he took the mule and put 2 washing tubs on the sled. This is a homemade sled out of, and the mule pulling it. and had a board on it. He would get on the sled and pull that board back, and it would drag going downhill. And then he'd let up a little bit, and then he'd drag her again. I remember that well. But got down there to the bottom, to the creek, and I didn't know really what we were going down there for. But he said, we got some chinking to do. You know what chinking means?
Mm-mm.
That means you're going to chink this log cabin. You're going to chink all this holes in the logs.
Mm.
And they run like this, you know. So he got clay out of the side of the banks. And clay is heavy. You get good clay and put it in my mother's wash tub. She hated that when he would do it, but she knew he had to do it. And you don't get much. You get a washing tub, they're that big around. But when you get that much in the bottom, you got some weight in it. And you've got to put water in it and work it all up, you know. And then going back uphill, I rode going down. But going back uphill, my father made me walk. I guess I was probably 6 years old. And, but I remember it. And he walked off to the side and guiding the mule up the path. And there wasn't no roads went up there. So we got up there to where we lived, and he had brought up a couple bales of straw. I think they maybe were 25 or 30 cents a bale. And he mixed that all in with this mud and stuff and the clay. And then during the summer month when it's hot, this clay that was in the joints would dry out and crumble and fall down, and couldn't use it no more. So he got this new stuff in a spatula made out of wood, and he'd rub it all in them, and it made it warmer.
Mm. That's cool.
So that's what he got that. He didn't do all that in one day either. That stuff was a master.
Mm-hmm. He was good with his hands. He knew how to build a lot of things.
Huh?
Your dad, he knew how to build a lot of things.
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, he did. He used to make mother's. You know what a washboard is?
Mm-hmm.
A woman's washboard.
Yeah.
He made them things out of wood,
Mm-hmm.
and he would get the right size switch, and he would split it until it was half round, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That got nailed onto a board, and an inch further down there would be another one. An inch down, it'd be another one, until he got all these slats that he had saved up and made up, and then he would have a place where you put the lye soap right up the top there. And there was a board there, and before you get it, and scrub his dirty pants, and then put the lye soap back, and mother would go to work. Oh, I've seen her fingers bleed, and one of her favorite things, when the man came that was down up there selling stuff, he would had a bell that he rang in a little buggy, and down around that stream he would ring that bell. And if you needed anything, you rang your bell, and we had a bell. Clang, 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 clang. And next thing you know, here he come with him, strap across his shoulder and all this stuff in here, needles and thimbles. My mother loved to sew and did a lot of it. And didn't have a machine either, it was all hand done. But and he would come up there and leave your stuff you wanted, and if you had a nickel or 15 cents or something to pay him, all right. If you didn't, he'd get you next time.
That's cool.
And a lot of times we didn't have 15, 20 cents. No, that was money there then. That was back during the Depression, 66, but 36.
Mm. It's a long time ago.
Yeah, it was.
A very long time ago.
Yeah.
So I guess at least two more things. I don't want to take up too much of your time. One of them, what's one thing that you feel that you've learned throughout all these years that now, at this point, looking back, what's something that life has really taught you that maybe you wish you knew when you were younger, or that you just want to pass along?
Well, one of the greatest things that have ever happened to me, my mother done. I was born to my mother, and I thought the world of my mother from the time I can remember her until the time she died. She died when she's 78. I think it's 78.
I don't know if she was that old, Frank. She died in 76, the year we were married.
Was it 76?
Uh-huh.
Okay, 76. But I had a father, and he was a circuit rider and gone a lot. And he slept out a lot, and his sleeping bags were under the horse's feet. He was a good horseman, and he could train a horse. In 1928, he helped train the horse that won the Kentucky Derby
Oh,
in
wow.
1928. And anybody that knew him at that, he might go off on a circuit ride, hitting all these little old churches in the valleys and dales, as they called it. But he'd be gone 6 weeks, 2 months. We didn't know if he was dead or not. He always came home with some stories to tell you. He came home there and one time and told us about this horse he had. He had trained this horse. He could get right underneath that horse and do anything he wanted to, and the horse would just stand there. And all he had to do was say woo, woo, and it would stop whatever it was doing and freeze. And he was camping out. He tied the horse up, and he would throw down a blanket, and maybe he shaved with water from the stream or something there, and shape up for the next day. And he, during the night, he was sleeping right under the horse's belly. The horse started going, and it wasn't moving, but it was letting him know that something was out there. And it got louder and louder, and finally my father saw it. And it was about a half of a moon light. And he said he could see them eyes, and that was a black bear. Of course, we had a lot of black bear up in the mountains there. And that horse was being spooked by that bear. And Dad jumped up and pulled that long buntline special he had, a pistol, and fired at one time in that direction. And went back and got down under the horse's feet and laid back down. The horse shut right up.
So you either killed it or scared it away.
He just scared it away. He said, I couldn't see it well enough to aim down the barrel, but I could see the eyes glistening, and the moon was shining just enough that he'd blink his eyes and I could see it. And I knew from the action of the horse that it was a bear. Yeah, but that scared us to death.
Yeah.
We were looking for a bear from then on.
And so, but you said there was something you learned from your mother.
Yeah. Most of my religion that I got from my mother, even though my father was a preacher.
Mm.
But I always said she was more of a Christian than my father was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there was a time when elections could be bought.
Mm-hmm.
And,
They still might be able to be bought.
yeah,
That time might still be now.
but not for $5.
Yeah.
So my father, he went to town and he voted for this so-and-so and got his $5. And my mother went to town and there were two different parties.
Your dad and your mother.
Yeah. He was not nearly as strong a Baptist as my mother was. He claimed to be a hard shell Baptist. And my mother was flexible. She could be a Baptist or a Methodist. And he had read the Bible 3 or 4 times, but my mother read it twice and part of another time. But yeah, I always thought she was more religious than he was.
Mm-hmm.
But they tried to buy her, but it couldn't be bought.
Yeah.
It was illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember one time going to town. We all walked. There were 7 of us. And I thought it was the longest walk I ever had. I was halfway carried. Are you still recording?
This one's still filming. That one probably.
Oh, okay. And we were lined up going down through the woods. Of course, you could walk for miles down old ruddy dirt road to get out of the woods so you could hit a blacktop road. And so Franklin Roosevelt had authorized the government and all to pay these roads.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, they turned them loose in the mountains. The Great Smoky Mountain National Park was built right after Franklin Roosevelt got in as president. And a lot of people felt that it should have been named after Franklin Roosevelt, but it wasn't.
Is that who you're named after?
Yeah.
That is your middle name? What's your middle name?
Franklin Delano Roosevelt Caudill.
Okay, so you're fully named after him.
But I never have in my life wrote the word Roosevelt.
Oh, really?
No.
But it's on your birth certificate.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but Franklin Delano is as far as I go.
Yeah.
And they accepted through the government and all. You had to sign your full name. And when you signed up for the draft in '52, when we were fighting in Korea, I was old enough to go. I went over to Georgetown, told them I was willing and able to go if they would take care of my mother and 2 sisters that are still in school.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the only person that can take care of them. I'm working DuPont full time, never have got laid off. Some of them got laid off, but they never did lay me off.
Mm.
And they say, we'll let you know. will send your, whatever you call your, we'll send you your letter for the draft and let you know what it is, if you're eligible. 3 or 4 days later, I got a letter, and they didn't want me. They classified me as 3A or 4A or something like that.
And what does that mean?
Well, that means I had one dependent, my mother. She'd had a heart attack, and I had 2 sisters in there, and myself, and so I was employed. That was the only one, and these 3 were my dependents.
Gotcha.
3A.
Well, that was good that they let you stay and take care of them.
Yeah, well, a lot of people did. But,
Yeah. Who knows how different your life would be had you...
I'd be dead probably,
Yeah,
because I'd have wanted to go right up to the front.
Yeah. So we probably wouldn't be here at that point.
Well, Cecil Collins, boy my age, and one of my best short-term time friend, he and I both went over to Georgetown together to sign up for the draft. And he went in the service. They drafted him. He had a father and a mother that was both employed, and he had 2 or 3 sisters. And but they drafted him. He went right through in Korea right up front, and later on, after he'd been up front for 6 months, they gave him a chauffeur's job, chauffeuring a general around, and he really liked that. Of course, we corresponded back and forth, and he was mustered out. He was coming home, and they put him on a ship, which they called a ferry. They were ferrying people from wherever he was at in Korea to Japan. And from Japan, you go airborne and head to San Francisco. So he got on this ferry boat, going to Japan. They had R&R, rest and recreation. And he went through, he was looking forward to that. And I got a knock on the door that the ferry had been put on. It got in a typhoon and it sank, and all the stuff that had hundreds of people on it being mustered out. And he was one of them, and they were all down in the lower part of the ship where all the equipment, tanks and trucks and all that stuff. And all that equipment broke loose. And here's all this mass of people with all this stuff coming right at them. They hitting waves in the typhoon. It killed him. Oh, yeah. You ever see a grown man cry? I cried.
Yeah. I'd imagine it had to have been so hard.
Then here come a knock on my door. And it was his girlfriend that he had left. She was crying, I was crying.
That must have been a really hard day.
It was a bad day.
Yeah.
But I got over it.
Yeah.
But I think of him. He lived right here in Laurel.
Oh, wow.
I've been to his house several times.
And what was his name?
Cecil Collins.
Oh, okay, cool.
He was born and raised in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. In Pottstown, we used to go up there to where he lived. It was a house that was rented out, and we didn't have a place to stay, we got a motel. But we went up there to his house, and right in the back of his house was a big pond, and it was a huge, deep thing, cold as ice. And we would go up 40 feet up this sycamore tree, up a ladder built right around the tree. The town had done it. And we'd get up there and jump off. And we jumped for 2 days before we ever got up the nerve to dive. I seen little kids there that I was, let's see, 19 years old and a good swimmer. I've seen little kids like that dive. I said, I can do that if they can.
Yeah.
So Cecil and I held hands, and he said, when we get ready to go, there was a platform there. Let go, Robbie. So we went that way and let go of each other, and we dove down in that pond, and that was the biggest thrill I ever had. And
That's cool.
yeah, and we had to dive after that.
Mm-hmm.
He'd dive and swim a few strokes away, and I'd dive 40 feet.
Mm.
I thought that was up there around the clouds, but I watched them guys on TV, cliff divers. Man, they're up there over 100 feet
Yeah, yeah.
diving, and
Oh, yeah.
that's something.
Okay, so last two things. One, do you have any, other than the peas story, do you have any other like funny, happy stories about Carol when she was little or anything?
Just the one where her mother used to set her in the chair next to the bathroom door. Now, Kim, she was naked one time. She was changing her diaper.
Mm-hmm.
And she went and got a washcloth and everything, and going to wash her up, and Kim ran across the floor. We had a space heater in the floor, built in the floor,
Mm-hmm.
and so big, and it was checkerboard, metal, and she fell on that damn thing and it was running. She had a checkerboard tail and
Carol fell.
no,
Oh, Kim?
Kim.
Kim
While
fell.
changing Carol.
Oh, okay.
But Carol was sitting right there in her little chair because she peed in her pants. And I was sitting in the living room, and I'd look around at her. She'd cry. And but Kim really got the worst of that deal, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now something that Carol, I just thought of and forgot that quick. Let's see.
You said she was sitting in the chair.
Yeah, she was sitting in the chair, but I can't think what it was now.
Well, this was good. Thank you for doing this.
Well, you're welcome.
I've been wanting to do this for a while, and figured now is as good a time as ever. So, yeah, I appreciate it. It worked out too.
You have anything to say, Dean?
No, man, I've just been listening. I learned a lot. I didn't even know you had a brother. You
Oh,
probably told me
yeah.
that, God, but
I was 14 and he was 21 when
there's
he
a lot I
died.
didn't know
So
about.
there was 7 years
Pretty cool.
difference.
Mm. And you remember him though and stuff.
Oh, yes, indeed, I remember him. Yeah, he was wild.
Mm-hmm.
He would, in Kentucky, my dad would say something to him or his mother would say something to him, he'd take off for running. And he would run up by the railroad track and run alongside the train and grab a hold of the bars and climb up there, and he was 12, 13 years old.
Train hopping.
And and he would go to town.
Oh my
Ride
God.
that thing all the way to town. It wasn't going fast now.
Yeah.
Maybe 7, 8 miles an hour. And I've seen him do it. I've seen him running up there. There was a special, he wasn't the only boy who did done it, or man. And they called them hobos. He would jump on sometimes, and they'd be, between the old latches of the train. That's where they sat back in there. And sometimes he would grab a hold and jump on up there and look, and there was an old ugly looking hobo, hadn't shaved in a month or so, and looking at him, and he'd jump right off. He'd catch the next car.
Oh my gosh. That's great.
He was something else.
That's great.
Did you tell them how much you loved to dance
Oh,
when you were a kid?
yeah, I one time there in Pittsburgh, where we lived, out of Pittsburgh, my dad
Kentucky.
was, had a church there,
Mm.
and they had a little carnival like, and they had built a little platform and all, and they had a lot of bluegrass music being played, and guys are picking and a fiddling and carried on, and the announcer got up there and he had a speaker. He didn't have the electric stuff. He had a speaker that he was speaking to with a big horn, and he said, "We want all the boys between whatever it was, 5 and 10, to come up here and dance, and we're going to give away prizes. And the one that does the best, we're going to give them a quarter." Quarter? Lord, that was the biggest money I ever had. I wanted it. I got up there and we all went to dancing and stomping, and they were playing music behind us, a fiddling and carrying on, and they stopped and they chose me as the winner.
Really?
Well, all the rest of them went down the little steps down off the platform, and they started fiddling again, and I stayed up on there and I went to dancing. And I danced as hard as I could just for the fun of it, and they gave me another quarter to stop. The show had to go on, so they gave me another quarter. I had 50 cents, and I bought the first harmonica for 25 cents. Gave my mother the other 25.
Oh my gosh.
They were in, yeah, and I remember I was 7 years old. I remember that real well, but I was tearing that floor up.
Yeah. So that's where I get my dance moves from.
I guess
I
so.
dance all the time now. I'm like,
But your mother was always a good dancer too.
yeah.
But yeah.
We probably danced a million miles.
Oh, we
Oh,
have.
yeah, I'm sure.
We've danced.
We often get
We
recognized
met dancing.
That's cool.
by the band.
We met
Yeah.
dancing, and we've danced to the world together.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed every minute of it.
That's a good way to put it. We dance through the world together.
We did. We're
You
still
know that
dancing.
song, Walk Through This World?
Yeah.
They play that for us
That's our song.
That's awesome.
with the dances. They'll say,
And who
oh,
sings that? Do you know?
Uh,
What's it
Walk.
called? Walk Through This World?
Walk through this world with me, go where I go.
It was either Eddie
Make
Arnold
all
or
my
George
dreams
Jones.
come
I'm not
true.
sure.
George
I
Jones.
love you so. George Jones? Yeah. In time I search.
We were at a dance a couple weeks ago outside.
Yeah.
And the band said, "Oh, we've got a special couple here." Charlotte and Frank said they have followed us for as long as we've been playing,
That's awesome.
and we're going to play this song for them. And it was
Yeah.
"Walk Through This World."
Oh.
Oh, they throw it on us every once in a while about some of our favorite music.
That's awesome.
You ever hear that song, Memphis, Tennessee?
Yeah.
help me information, get in touch with my Marie.
Like that happened. We were dancing on blacktop, and this little boy come up and looked at us, and so we took his hand.
He wanted to dance.
He wanted to dance.
That is so cute.
That's awesome.
We didn't know him, but
No,
Yeah.
he loved to
but
dance.
he loved to dance.
He just stood there looking up.
Nobody would dance with him. He couldn't get his grandmother or mother up there.
Uh-huh. So he had you guys.
They were a few pounds overweight, I think.
I'm gonna take. Do you mind care if I take a picture of that before we go? I'll just take a photo of it.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you all so much. This was great.
Oh yeah.
Anything else before I turn the camera off?
I love everybody, and I love all my kids especially, including Dean. And all of them, boys and girls, and I love them until I die. All the new ones, I'm waiting for them to come on so I can go on. And you got one coming, and
Yeah.
there's
Caitlin's
another.
got one.
Yeah.
Well, she looked like she's about ready to have her.
Yeah.